All right, thank you. It looks like everybody's ready. So it's 5:01 p.m. So let's start the meeting of the Yucca Valley Town Council. So let's have a roll call.
Council members Abel.
Here.
Dennison.
Here.
Lombardo.
Here.
Schooler.
Here.
And Mayor Droz.
Here. Now we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Councilmember Dennison to start us with that.
Thank you, Mayor. Everyone, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So please stay standing. Thank you for doing that. And we have the invocation led by Councilor David Strong, Church of the Latter-day Saints.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Appreciate this opportunity to say the invocation. Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful that we are gathered here this evening to discuss the affairs of the great city of Yucca Valley. Father, we're grateful for the beautiful weather which we have this day and grateful for the opportunities we have to be here and gathered together. Father, we ask a special blessing on the mayor and the council members and those in attendance, that all items on the agenda will be discussed and all the affairs will be taken care of and resolved to the best of everyone's ability. We ask a special blessing on all first responders, those who are responding to emergencies of any sort, whether it be police, fire, medical, or our military. Please bless them with safety and with protection. Please bless that we will have a peaceful and educational meeting this day. We pray for thy spirit to be amongst us all, that our hearts will be touched and minds will be lightened, and we will be feeling of thy comfort here in this room. We pray for guidance in all that we do and do these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Strong. That was very appropriate. All right, now we have the introduction of the Miss Yucca Valley Court. I was lucky enough to be able to be there and escort the girls across the stage. So it's really cool to have been involved in this. So anyway, it's nice to see you three here. So we have a presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Audrey Grady, your Miss Yucca Valley of 2025, and I would like to thank the Town Council for your support to this program. Without you guys, I don't think it would be possible. And I'd like to thank Jeff for escorting me and my court, and the other contestants, and the rest of the council members for escorting the previous year's contestants as well. I would like to now introduce my first princess.
Hello there, I am your first princess, Acacia Smith, and I just want to express my gratitude for getting to be up here for a different reason than Youth Commission and getting to introduce myself a second time. I'm so grateful that we have programs like this and that I get to see a ton of other youth really get involved like this, and I get to be a leader for those people. And I would like to introduce our second princess.
Hello everyone, my name is Alyssa Ramos, and I would just like to say I am very grateful for the Town Council, for Jeff for making us feel very comfortable on that stage that night, and now we are all here together, and I'm grateful for these young ladies with me today, as well as for John, because he has guided us through this whole program, and being able to speak here in front of you guys today wouldn't be possible without him. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Miss Yucca Valley's third princess, Sophia Gonzalez.
Hi everyone, I would just like to express my gratitude towards the Town Council, the Rotary, and everyone who's came to support this program. It is a very valuable thing for young girls like me, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities it's been presented my way. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to mention John Bobrowski in the back, so raise your hand, John. He is responsible for all of this. Thank you. Want to say something?
Mayor, if you're interested, I think it might be appropriate for the court to join you up here for a quick picture, if that'd be okay.
Sure. Anybody else on the council who wants to?
Get the logo behind us. ID, can we get the logo behind us? Where's the mayor?
Okay, next is the approval of the agenda. So would anyone like to make a motion on that? Any council member?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as written.
Mayor Dennison will second.
Councilmembers Abel,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Droz.
Yes. The next item is the consent agenda. So this is a regular item that's always on here. Things that have been discussed before. And so is there anyone that would like to, any council member that would like to remove an item or discuss it? Oh, yeah, first, thank you. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda, online or in person? All right. So
I'll move.
council members,
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
And Mayor Dennison will second.
Councilmembers Abel,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Droz.
Yes. Next item is department reports. So we'll start with number 4, Western Joshua Tree Conservation Plan update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The recommended action before you this evening is that the council receives and files a report. I'm going to walk through a little bit about the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act, the plan, which was a requirement in the act, and some boots on the ground, what it means in this real world as a property owner or for a property owner in Yucca Valley who may have Joshua trees or the Western Joshua tree on their property and they need to make improvements on their property. So on June 7th, excuse me, of 23, the legislature passed the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act, and that act became effective on July 1st of 23. The purpose of the act was to create a separate permitting process for the Western Joshua Tree, separate from a standard incidental take permit process, as the Western Joshua Tree was under consideration for listing under the California Endangered Species Act. The Western Joshua Tree is still a candidate species. What does it mean to be a candidate species? It means the Western Joshua Tree has the same protection as though it were listed on the California Endangered Species Act. And the Conservation Act says that's going to remain in place for approximately 10 years unless the California Fish and Game Commission acts prior to that 10-year limitation. The act required the preparation of a conservation plan, and it required that plan, the first draft of that plan, to be presented to the California Fish and Game Commission before the end of December of 24, and that deadline was satisfied. The plan is required under the act to be adopted by the commission by June 30th of this year. The commission held its first meeting on February 12th, and in your packet this evening is a copy of the town's correspondence to the California Fish and Game Commission with our request for consideration of changes to the plan prior to the commission taking action on that plan. There are some other documents that also create impacts for property owners that have western Joshua trees. The first one is what's called the Western Joshua Tree Census Instructions, which was developed by the State Department of Fish and Wildlife and adopted by the State Department of Fish and Wildlife. And this is where the council has heard, and some members of the community have heard, the whole 50-foot radius buffer was created. And you can see on the overhead in these census standards, this is where this first appeared. And this is an adopted official document of the State Department of Fish and Wildlife. This sets the standard for they call it a census, but it's essentially an inventory of the western Joshua trees, their size, their condition, their health, that you must make as a property owner if you intend to disturb ground within 50 feet of those western Joshua trees. This is a graphic that represents that census and how individuals are supposed to prepare the census, walk the project site. It's not only your property that has to be taken into consideration, but if you are disturbing the ground, and we're going to get into some real-world examples, if you're disturbing the ground on your property, but you are within 50 feet of western Joshua trees on your neighbor's property, you're required to include those trees as a part of your census. We now go from the census guidelines into the draft plan, and this page is taken from the draft Western Joshua Tree Conservation Plan, and you can see here that again they're using the outer ring, number 3, that's the 50-foot distance. There's also the number 2 ring, which is a 25-foot distance, and then the number 1 ring, which I believe is 2.5 feet. And they apply some different standards based upon the height of the tree in those locations. So they're taking from their census instructions into the draft plan. But what does this mean for a property owner in Yucca Valley? So the town contracted with MSA. It's an engineering planning consulting firm out of the low desert to give us 3 real-world examples of what this can mean for a property owner in Yucca Valley. We went up on the south side of town, Story Park, Alta Loma Estates, where, as the council is aware, we have a pretty high population of Joshua trees, but it's also an area where phase 2 of the sewer project is coming in. So we have a few examples to walk through. This is a typical 50-year-old home, has a septic tank out in front. Their leach field may fail, their septic tank may fail. You may have to replace those. You may have to abandon that septic tank and connect to the sewer if phase 2 of the sewer comes up in that area. So what are you required to do? You're required to conduct that census or that inventory of the trees within 50 feet of the ground disturbing activity. I'll give you another example. Many homes in our neighborhoods of these 50 and 60-year-old homes were constructed originally with galvanized water lines going from the street up to the home. Those galvanized water lines corrode and they fail. So you have to trench, dig up that old line, abandon that line, install a new PVC line. Technically, under the California laws, you are supposed to apply for a Western Joshua Tree incidental take permit, as we see today. So in this particular case, based upon the number and the size of trees on this property owner, if they're replacing their septic system, if they're connecting to the sewer, if they're replacing their water service line, their mitigation fees only, not the cost of the work, but their mitigation fees only, are estimated at $46,700. That doesn't include, now let's just assume for a moment that their septic system has failed. It's going to take a minimum of 4 months to get a permit from the state of California. So if any of you have ever had a septic system fail, a leach field fail in your septic system, and you have a few people living in your house, what happens on a daily basis? Well, you get to pump your septic tank every other day because that tank's going to fill up. Can you imagine that cost over a 4-month time period? You then have application fees you have to pay. You have environmental fees you have to pay to the state, plus the mitigation fees. So the $46,000 is just the start of those costs related to the unintended consequences of this act. Let's look at a second example. Same scenario, and I won't spend as much time on it. Septic tank, water line, leach field, sewer connection. Same scenario. This property has more trees on it. $62,900 in mitigation fees. Same thing, another property, lots of trees, $59,200 in mitigation fees. This is what has occurred with the protection of the western Joshua tree and what it means for property owners that have the trees present on their property, especially when you get into the densities that we're talking about here. Well, let's talk a little bit now about infrastructure projects. And this is a page out of High Desert Water District's agenda for their board meeting tomorrow night. This is not confidential information. This is published on their website. This is a public document, but this is a report from their general manager updating the board on the numbers they are estimating, the costs they are estimating they are going to incur for phase 2 of the sewer project for western Joshua Tree mitigation fees. Under the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act, they are estimating to have to pay mitigation fees in the neighborhood of $17 to $18 million. So the state of California granted around $105 million grant to High Desert Water District for phase 2. What's occurring? A different state. So the State Department of Water Resources, which the Regional Water Quality Control Board falls under, has an order. You got to build the sewer system. You have to protect the groundwater. Another state agency, another state department in the same agency, the Department of Fish and Wildlife says, well, yeah, you have to build a sewer, but to build the sewer, you're going to give us $18 million. That reduces an estimated 8 miles of collection line that High Desert Water District would build if they didn't have to pay those mitigation fees to the State Department of Fish and Wildlife. The $6 million number on the left-hand side is the estimated fee if you would not use the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act, and if you would use the standard incidental take permit process that all of the other protected species fall under. So I'm sure that's going to be a conversation that the Water Board will be having tomorrow night at their meeting. So again, another example of the impacts in this particular case of the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act on a public agency and trying to build infrastructure projects to serve this community. The town ran into a similar issue in the development of the Aquatic Center project. There were a few Western Joshua trees left on that site, and we wanted those removed so we could properly develop the site. That took us in excess of 12 months to obtain a permit, and I believe our mitigation fees were around $75,000, plus we were required to transplant some of those trees to another location. We're facing that same situation on the town's pickleball court project here on the north side of the community center. We don't have the numbers yet from Fish and Wildlife, but we expect those numbers in the very near future. There is, for those that would like to, and we encourage people to provide their input to the Department of Fish and Wildlife as well as the Fish and Game Commission, and they are holding a public workshop on Monday, March 10th. That workshop has 2 sessions, 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We'll be posting this information on the town's webpage so that hopefully people can link in and provide their input remotely into that meeting. You can also email, and there's an email address, wjt@wildlife.ca.gov, so you can send your comments in. We'll be putting this out on the town's social media pages and encouraging folks to participate as much as possible. I think you've seen some very real-world examples tonight of the impacts of this law on property owners within Yucca Valley and the Morongo Basin. Again, just a little more information on the meeting on Monday the 10th. California Fish and Game Commission is scheduled to hold their next hearing on April 16th and 17th. They have not published an agenda yet, so we do not know on which day the Western Joshua Tree will appear. It will be on one of those 2 days, the 16th or 17th, and we anticipate, as required by the Act, that the commission will adopt the plan on either the 11th or 12th of June, whichever of those 2 days the Western Joshua Tree appears on the commission's agenda. That concludes the staff presentation this evening. We'd be happy to answer questions following public comment.
All right, thank you, Shane. So is there anyone in the public, either online or in person, that would like to comment on this? No one online. Anyone in person? There are 2 people. So let's start in the back. Mr. Statham.
Bob Statham, Yucca Valley, and I'm speaking as a private citizen tonight. I think the state has provided a possible solution option when it declared that California would be a sanctuary state and thus exempt from federal laws related to immigration. So I would like you to consider using their example and declare Yucca Valley a sanctuary city and exempt from this, what I would consider near idiocy. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And there was someone else with their hand up, coming up.
My name is Susie Dick, and I'm from Yucca Valley. My question is who has to pay these exorbitant amounts? And if a person who doesn't even have a Joshua tree in their yard has to pay the neighbor's fee because it's sitting on their boundary, who has to pay that fee? And how is that ever going to make it possible for us to actually get get rid of septic tanks and have, I can't even think what it's called. But anyway, that's what my question is. Seems like an impossible situation for everybody in this town. So that's just me thinking outside the box a little bit, because how are you ever going to have plumbing that isn't a septic tank, or how are you going to, nobody can afford those kind of fees, no one. And how are we ever going to sell our property if we decide to sell? Nobody will ever buy here. That, to me, is going to destroy our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to comment?
We have one online comment. Alec Mackey, I'm requesting to unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Alec Mackey, and we own a half-acre buildable lot in the Juniper Terrace neighborhood. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. We're blessed with about 65 Joshua trees on the lot, according to the census, and we're working on a 1,400 square foot house that we've designed to fit as lightly as possible, even go around some of the trees. We do need to take about 14 to 20. We all know that this, and you know what I know, this is a regulatory and economic train wreck. So I want to get to the point of my comment tonight, and that's to encourage council members to have even more of these conversations and listen to those of us who are suffering economically from the act and the plan. Maybe a coffee chat or something with one of you to gather these financial hardship stories, then compile those hardship stories and share them as widely as possible in Sacramento. We're guessing about 30 to 40K for our take permit. Listening to Shane, of course, I'm more concerned. Then we get to CEQA. So there's massive CEQA confusion. Consultants say we're exempt. CDFW said to go ask the town. Jared from your staff was so kind and patient in explaining that CDFW is the lead CEQA agency. They're the ones issuing the permit, and CDFW has promised to get back to us on CEQA. I don't know if CEQA is coming or going from our project, but it's absolutely ridiculous. If we do need to do CEQA reports, what is the cost of that? As we approach $50,000 to $80,000 in our single, for a small 2-bed, 2-bath, I fear the project starts to fall apart. There's no justification anyone can make to build a single-family residence. What happens to our lot? What happens to all of the money we've already invested in this, with land encumbered with 80 to even more costs? I think more and more people will start to experience the economic pain if we can gather enough stories of individual Californians struggling under this act and get those to Sacramento. They signed this as a budget writer behind closed doors. I wasn't able to comment. And I think the only way to get through to the governor's office is to gather and to share those stories. I thank you so much for providing this opportunity to share the comment.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else in the public, online or in person? Okay, let's bring it back to the council. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Yes, go right ahead.
It absolutely flabbergasts me that we have lost so much common sense. This seems outrageous and it needs to quit. We will do everything we can, please, as the public, write your representatives and make your voices heard in Sacramento. If it was up to the town, I think we would come up with a reasonable solution that would both protect the tree and allow our citizens to live a life that's worthy of Yucca Valley. And we do love our trees, but this is ridiculous.
Next.
Yeah, I was concerned, of course, on a lot of the levels. First of all, one of my favorite neighborhoods is at Story Park and Juniper Terrace, and when they developed it, they did a really environmentally nice job in building those homes, saved as many Joshua trees as they possibly could, so that's why those people who purchased the homes there in the Story Park area have done their job in preserving those Joshua trees, but now it's coming back to hurt them versus the developer who just cleared off everything off of the property and now doesn't have these fees to worry about. So it seems counterproductive. The other thing is that we do really love the trees and so forth. I'm worried about that graphic where maybe an 80-year-old person on fixed income who has a broken pipe, doesn't have water to their home, what are they going to do? I can understand a tree having to be removed, and I think there should be a fee to pay when you have to remove a tree, whether you're building a home or having to put in a pipeline or something, a tree has to be removed, then yes, pay a fee, a fine. That way, that money can go to preserving trees in other areas. But to pay a fine or a fee for trees that don't need to be removed is extortion. It's ridiculous. So, that graphic that we saw showing the diameter, one of those Joshua trees is in the backyard on the opposite side of the house. And so they have to pay a full price fee for that Joshua tree that's never going to get hurt or disturbed. And so it's just, it's not logical. So I really want people to ask Fish and Game and any representative they have, protect the tree, protect the people. We need to protect both, the people and the tree, because putting that burden on that 80-year-old person on a fixed income is not fair. And we don't have, million-dollar homes up here. When you look at the fees that you're talking about a fourth of the value of your home just to put in a water line, or the state of California is saying we need to have clean groundwater, and then on the other side, they're wanting to charge us for a Joshua tree. It's like you have to choose between clean water or a Joshua tree. I think we can find a compromise where we can have both, because we need our sewer system, we need our clean aquifer for the future, and we need to preserve as many trees as possible, but make it financially responsible process. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And anyone over here?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask for a couple of clarifications. Shane, what is considered a ground disturbance?
Those words exactly. So it can be anything. And in our conversations with Fish and Wildlife staff, their comments were, if somebody has a project and they're doing ground disturbance, please send them to discuss their project with us.
So that would be even if somebody's just having their septic tank pumped, that's disturbing the ground?
Theoretically, yes.
Wow, and then there might be a significant delay.
There could be.
And you might have an emergency that just gets worse and worse. Okay. So the fees are due for every ground disturbance. So if that one homeowner with 60-some trees pays the fees, and then next door neighbor has an issue, they got to pay for that same tree? They got to pay a fee for that same tree?
We don't have an answer as to how the State Department of Fish and Wildlife is going to track how many times a tree has been assessed and paid for. You would hope that they have a system where they're not, and I'm going to use my word, double dipping and collecting fees multiple times for the same tree. You hope they have a system to accomplish that.
Okay, so whether the tree is taken or not, the fee is due the same,
So, and I'm glad you used the term that you did. The state considers that ground disturbing activity within the 50 feet as a take. In other words, you don't have to touch the tree, you don't have to remove the tree, you don't have to kill the tree. That ground disturbing activity is classified as, quote, the take, and therefore the fee.
And some of those clusters that we saw with multiple trunks coming out of basically the same spot, that's a tree, each one of those trunks that come up?
Yes, sir.
Is a trunk. Okay, and one other question. Where do the fees go to? Who gets the money?
There is and I probably am not going to use the correct term, but essentially a Western Joshua Tree Conservation Fund, and that fund goes to land acquisition for the long-term preservation of the species, as well as other efforts for the long-term preservation of the species. I believe the state has an accounting of that fund and how those funds have been expended, and that's something I'm sure we'll be requesting over time just to stay updated on how those funds are being distributed for that program.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for the report. I would just encourage everybody, before this gets really, really way out of hand, to take part in the March 10th and any other public workshops that we can, because this could be devastating to our community for any kind of development, or even putting up a fence, or putting in a pool, or adding a room, or anything or pumping a septic tank. So I think it hasn't been that well thought through at the state level. So I would encourage everybody to participate in all the workshops ahead of time before we get really in deep on this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And Councilmember Dennison, you have something?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Shane, for the presentation. I think it brings a lot of people up to speed on what we're dealing with in our community right now. We're trying to be good servants for the residents of our town, and it makes it very difficult. The state has put these regulations in place, the state leadership, along with the legislators, and they've worked to put it in a position of being protected for the Western Joshua Tree. But there's opposing factors here that really gets complicated. One is they've also put mandates on us to bring in fresh water. We did that years ago through an aqueduct system from Hesperia to Yucca Valley, and that's how we receive a lot of our water. But then as we started to fill our the groundwater started to rise and get into the aquifers, and we had nitrates from tanks. And a good idea was brought forward to put in a treatment system and a collection system. So we can, as a community, through our water district, have clean, safe drinking water and responsible collection and management of that wastewater. And it doesn't go back in the ground anymore. That's our goal, is so everyone here has the right, and they should, to have fresh, clean drinking water, and it's available. And that is becoming almost difficult, if not impossible, for some homeowners to be able to afford these numbers. The other part that we've been dealing with is it's all sensationalized in the news, a huge tragedy, or all the fires we've had recently. The state of California, their state fire department, CAL FIRE, they have talked for many, many years of having about a 30-foot clearance, of removing all the vegetation, just thin it down a little bit, maybe a couple ornate plants, but nothing against your house. Zone 0 is a new thing you're doing. So right up against your house, you should have nothing there. Nice and clean, make your house safe for fire coming onto your property, then a 30-foot buffer around that, and then you know what the next level is? 100 feet. They want you to thin all the vegetation around that area. So the state is starting to mandate things, make exemptions to CEQA, talking about the Coastal Commission not being adhered to, of all the policies they've brought forward to basically hinder development in those areas. But because it's been sensationalized, these horrible events of these wildfires, and a few years ago, remember Paradise, the same thing, lessons learned for the state of California. So we now don't have an opportunity to clearly move forward with our clean drinking water. We don't have the opportunity to move forward to do these recommendations from our fire department, San Bernardino County Fire Department. They've given presentations about the importance of this. So is the state of California, the state's own fire department, under that same leadership, and that we can't do that either. So just to get out of the thing of just the Joshua Tree itself, it's really putting a hindrance of public safety in our community. And that's the number one thing, and many people have known that about me. Our public safety services allow you to sleep at night, to have a sense of well-being in your community. And we have all of our basically public servants that are here to create that safe environment with all kinds of barriers in front of them. That's just my public rant. I wanted to make sure that everyone is hearing that. This is a very complicated problem, and I hope you can all participate and hopefully speak of the importance of this. Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, prior to your comments and closing on the matter.
Sure.
There were a couple questions posed by the speakers this evening that staff would like to address. The first question was, who is responsible for the costs? And unfortunately, it's the underlying property owner that's doing the work on their property that's responsible for those permit applications and those costs. The online speaker asked the question, what is the status of CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act review? So in answer to that question, the State of California Department of Fish and Wildlife is currently responsible for CEQA review for any incidental take permit that is filed with their office today. The town is undertaking a step which we are hoping we will be able to relieve property owners of those CEQA costs, because the state doesn't do that for free. They charge fees for that. So in conjunction with the Planning Center and the Town Attorney's Office, we are working with State Department and Fish and Wildlife, and you're probably going to see, a general plan amendment coming before the Town Council, where we are amending some mitigation measure language regarding the western Joshua Tree, which the state staff will be able to use to streamline the CEQA process, the CEQA review process. So that's step one that we're undertaking. Step two, once that's accomplished, step two, we're going to be evaluating, can the town obtain a townwide incidental take permit for certain types of development? Septic tank replacement, sewer connections, street projects, single-family infill, question mark, accessory dwelling units, question mark. How involved is that? How much time is that going to take with the state? What are they going to charge us for that? But at the end of the day, would that process be 100% streamlined, and an individual would only have to write and I know this isn't popular, but it's the reality that we're dealing with today, write a check to the state of California, and 7 days later they have a permit. So that's the second step in our process. Less, and I'll give you my opinion, the only way this is going to be changed is through legislation. The current plan that's going through the process is not going to be a regulatory document. And we've been instructed by the State Department of Fish and Wildlife, including their attorneys on that issue. It's not regulatory, it's all regulated by the Act. And if we want changes, if we want exemptions, so if we want a single-family infill lot to be exempted, change the law. If we want to be able to build an accessory dwelling unit, you're not removing a western Joshua tree, you're 20 feet away. If you want to be exempted and not pay the mitigation fees, change the law. So ultimately, to effectuate change on these regulations, the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act is going to need to be amended. That's going to be not an easy process. There are so many interests involved in that legislation that's going to be a major undertaking. So thank you, Mayor, for letting me interrupt and answer those questions this evening. Be happy to answer any other questions that the council has tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Shane. I just want to say I think it's pretty disgusting what the Fish and Wildlife Department is doing. Think about maybe a kind-hearted person wants to put in affordable housing for those of us that can't afford, most housing around here or anywhere. How is this going to affect affordable housing? I mean, if you're adding $50,000 and say somebody wants to put in a fourplex, I mean, that just drives the price up. So it's going against what a lot of people are in favor for, affordable housing. And let's say you go to an event somewhere, a local place like Mojave Desert Land Trust, which I love, but let's say they have the nursery there, and let's say they're selling a Joshua tree because they sell native plants. I mean, who would want to buy a Joshua tree and plant it in their yard? Because in the future, if your septic tank breaks, you have to pay thousands of dollars. It's like it's hurting nature in that way. It's people avoiding planting a native plant in their yard. So to me, that's just backwards. And it's even like if you've been up to Sage Estates, they dug up a lot of Joshua trees when they built that years ago, and they have a huge Joshua tree nursery there, and there's, I don't know, 50 or more Joshua trees that are alive and thriving, and their intention was to replant the Joshua trees in the yards of the houses. It's like, now what? I mean, you can't replant them in the houses. So at the houses, in their yards. So there's just so many things. It goes against everything. It irritates me, and I hope that we all contact our representatives, contact the Fish and Wildlife Department, contact our congressmen and senators and the state representatives, because I don't think it's gotten enough attention. We're all here for a reason right now, everyone in the public, and I think we need, to get more people aware of this issue. So hopefully some of you will take this on and try and spread the word, because it's really unfair to a lot of people. And I don't think it even helps the Joshua trees. It's just backwards. So that's my comment. Is there anyone else that wants to add anything? No?
I like to garden, and I'm afraid that now grand disturbing occurrences could be digging a flower bed or a vegetable plot, and that's ridiculous. $68,000 just to put some vegetables in ain't gonna fly.
Well, if you plant a Joshua tree near a Joshua tree, you'll have to pay a fine.
Well,
so
the rules are 50 feet. Everything's 50 feet.
Yes.
Jeez.
All right.
That's
Well,
ridiculous.
Well, thank you. Well, this is a receive and file, so this issue is over. So that's item number 4. And item number 5, animal shelter operational review.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We're going to take a little bit of a tag team approach, Shane and I, on this item, but I do want to recognize that at your last council meeting on February 18th, the council received significant public comment about the Yucca Valley Animal Shelter. I was not present at that meeting. I was ill that evening, but over the next couple of days, went back and viewed and listened to all of those comments that were provided this evening, or that evening. I would characterize them generally as operational comments, concerns, suggestions, and recommendations along the general lines of animal intake process that we use at the shelter, our lost dog notification process, adoption availability notification, adoption rates, euthanasia rates, community outreach, and a desire for volunteer opportunities. So we heard all of those comments and understand them. Due to those comments on an item not being on the agenda, the town council was precluded from discussing it this evening, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to give you an update tonight, to have it on the agenda to allow you to be able to hear what the current status is, as well as provide any other comments that you think are appropriate. I do want to make it very clear to the council and to the community that the town is 100% confident of the following. Our animal care and control staff routinely follow and adhere all state, county, and local regulations and requirements for our shelter. Secondly, the animal shelter that we have is our newest facility. It's a top-tier facility for the care of animals in this community. It also meets or exceeds all state, county, and local regulations related to animal shelters. And then lastly, and I think you heard this from one of our staff members that provided unsolicited comments at your last council meeting, we're absolutely confident that our entire Yucca Valley Animal Shelter staff is fully dedicated to the well-being of the animals that we serve at the shelter. That being said, the town staff is not so presuming or cavalier as to think that we can't do better. And we understand that we have a responsibility to defend civic trust and transparency in the operations that we have, whether it's our animal care and control operations, whether it's our recreation and community services, public works, or our animal shelter. We want to provide service at the highest level. And so we're very appreciative of the comments that you heard at your last council meeting. And immediately our management team, this is beyond our shelter staff, this is our management team, has already begun and are underway with an operational review of our shelter operations. We want to ensure that we have facts, that we have clarity, that we have an understanding of our operation relative to other like operations, and then we will present that information back to you. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Shane to kind of walk through a little bit of what we envision completing in the operational review and what you as a council and what the public will see when we complete that task.
So operational reviews are very standard, and the council sees those reviews frequently. It may not seem like that's what you're looking at, but in many cases, that's what they are. So what's one that you see every year? You see an audit report. The auditor tells you how your accounting staff is doing. Are they doing that correctly? Are they following proper procedures? Are they following GASB regulations correctly? They tell you where the money's at. They check the books. They double check the staff, and they give you that audit report every year. That's an operational analysis that you receive every year on your finance operations. Very frequently in this organization, the town receives updates on processes, procedures related to private land development, be that the engineering side, the building and safety side, or the planning side. What are the processes? What are the timelines? How does the communication work? How does the public outreach work? How does the coordination with a developer or the developer's representative work? You hear those reports. You hear those annual reports from staff, and many times now you're receiving monthly or quarterly report updates from those different division operations. So what's next in line for that process? Next in line for that process is the animal shelter. I'm not going to go through every single metric that we've laid out in the staff report, but I just want to touch on a few. We're going to be looking at what are the procedures at the shelter, from intake through adoption, through return to owners. What are those processes that they use? Are those industry standard? Are they the same as other shelters, or is there something we're missing, or are we doing well? How do our key indicators look? Return to owner, euthanasian rates, adoption rates, rescue group transfers, transfer to other shelters. How do we fit into that regional picture? Do we need to make adjustments? How do we make those adjustments? What resources are going to be necessary to make those adjustments? Those are all standard questions you ask and answer in any organizational review. What are your staffing levels? Are they appropriate? Are you understaffed? Is there an issue of timing of when staff is present at the shelter versus not present at the shelter? What resources do you have? What technology are you using? Is your technology outdated? And I'll just give you an example. One of the very reasonable requests that many individuals have spoken about is being able to see animals that are brought to the shelter that aren't in the adoptable kennel yet, but may be coming to the adoptable kennel in a short period of time if they're not claimed by the animal owner. Shelters that do that have specific software that they use to make that program function. It's a very standard software, Chameleon. It's $40,000 a year, every year. We don't have that software. We don't use that software. Is that something we need to consider potentially? Is there an alternative to that that's less costly? Maybe. That's part of our evaluation process, and those are things we're going to look at. We're collecting data from multiple other shelters across Southern California in order to give the council a comparison and a contrast so you can see how we fit into that picture and what our performance metrics are. This is going to take approximately 3 months to prepare and schedule to be brought before the town council. So sometime around when you see budget adoption, budget amendments, sometime around June, we would expect this report to be coming to the council. But we're not waiting for the report to make any changes that we've identified up front. So for example, one of the issues identified through public comment was, what are you doing with outreach groups? And I'll be very honest, our rescue group, I said outreach, but our rescue group list is less than 100. It's pretty small. San Bernardino County's is between 600 and 700. So we're already working with San Bernardino County. We're going to be sending out emails to their list, asking those groups to file applications with us. We need to make sure that they're legitimate, that they have the proper credentials, and we want to put them into our process to help increase that live return rate. We've looked at our web page. How can we make our web page more useful for available dogs? Our special adoption programs, our spay-neuter program, all of which lead to higher adoption rates, lower euthanasia rates. So we're already looking and starting to implement some of these steps, but some are going to require council discussion. One of those, I can tell you without hesitation, you've heard discussions about volunteer efforts. Volunteers take supervision. Are we staffed at the Yucca Valley Animal Shelter to provide supervision to any level of volunteer forces? We are not. We are very, very small staffed. We are very short staffed. We don't have that capability. But we're going to present with the town council with how can that happen? How can we make that happen? And what does that mean potentially budget-wise in that picture? So this is the process that we are going through as the management team. There are many different individuals that are going to be involved in that process as we finalize this report and bring it back to the town council for consideration and any policy direction that comes out of that report. That concludes the staff comments this evening, and staff would be happy to answer questions following public comment.
All right, so we just had the staff review of this, so now we're moving on to public comment. So is there anyone in the public, online or in person, that would like to speak on the subject? So should we start online maybe, or Leslie?
I just want to say a quick announcement. Those of you that were here last couple of weeks ago, you kind of understand. But what I'd like to do is, since we have so many people that would request to speak tonight on this item, if I'm going to call two names. One will come up to the podium to speak. The next person, just be ready and be on deck over on the side, and then we'll keep things rolling. The other thing is, if you agree with the person who is speaking and what they are talking about, just raise your hand, and that will give the council a visual on the consensus in the public here. So with that, whether you wanted to start online first, that's fine. And I'll be timing on.
I do want to say, like, I don't know who was here last time, but just so you understand how this works, we're not allowed by law to respond to you. You're here to make a comment and then go back and sit down. You have 3 minutes, and you'll see the lights change color, then it'll beep. But I always feel bad. Sometimes people want us to comment back, and we can't at this time because it's your time to speak, and we can respond to you later. So, okay. So let's see. Let's start with, I guess we'll start with online comments. How many do we have?
We have 2 online public comments. We will start with Diana Persinger and followed by Stasha Knof. Diana Persinger, I request you to unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hello. Okay, thank you guys for hearing out the community. I love hearing that you guys are already working on so many things. This is my first time speaking, and I missed last meeting, so I just want to start with, I guess I just want to start with, I am a community member of over 20 years. I have adopted from the shelter multiple times. I have rescued off the streets in town, Joshua Tree, and Yucca Valley, multiple times. But I'm also a networker online. And what I wanted to talk about as far as that goes is the outreach could be so much more than I think could be expected just from, you know, the limitations that you guys already have, which you guys are already aware of. And I understand that you said that there was programs that might constrict being able to do that. I think even if you had volunteers kind of help with some of those postings online, that might be very helpful. Taking just a picture, I asked during the last meeting, I was on the phone with one of the managers. I'm not sure if it was the manager of the shelter or if it was actually the town manager, but I had a very long, good conversation for over an hour discussing some of these topics. And what I wanted to suggest is using social media can expand not just Southern California, but across the United States to help network these dogs, to increase our numbers for adoption, for reunions, and decrease, euthanasia for even aggressive dogs, for fearful dogs. I understand that there's a liability issue with and staff issue with having volunteers there to help with like play groups or things that might help de-stress some of those dogs that, maybe they were running loose for so long that being constrained and being with other fearful dogs immediately gets them tagged as unadoptable. Anyways, I want to hurry up because I know I can take too much time here. I want to discuss that speaking for past, present, and future dogs, we do need to do better. We can do better, and use us, community members, networkers across the United States as your army to help do better. And then also the trap and release program. I know that we don't have it locally. I would love to see something done about that, and not just, as I was told last month on the phone, that, feral or strays are just considered coyote food and, not worth putting effort into that, the local situation here ourselves. So I would have to reach out to county to kind of get help, trying to help do that. So I'm sure my time is almost up. I just want to say thank you for hearing other people out, for helping hear us all out. And I want to thank everybody else who has shown up to talk. I know you guys are going to do a better job than I did, but thank you all for considering doing better.
Thanks for your comment. I think we have one more person online.
Next up, we have Sasha Knof. I've requested you to unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Sasha Knof, and I live in Los Angeles County. And thank you so much for what I heard from all of you and what you're doing. And it's wonderful that you're taking action about what the citizens are concerned about for the animals. But it seems that taking action and saying that you're taking action are two different things. I'm really concerned about what's going on in the Yucca Valley Animal Shelter, and I understand that the shelter doesn't currently allow volunteers, and that you can't have volunteers because of the because you don't have the staffing or the financial ability right now. But it is concerning. But I do agree with what the previous speaker said about utilizing social media. I think that would be actually incredible and would be and financially good. Sorry, I was asked by a resident in Yucca Valley to speak about this and to support you guys. She was really, really upset about what is going on, and that you guys don't seemingly you have a really, really high death rate and a really, really high kill rate at the shelter, and potentially not and violating the Eden Act. I'm gonna stop talking because thank you so much, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And now we'll move on to public comment, people that are here.
First, we have Susan Herring, followed by Greg Herring.
Thank you, Susan Herring, 40-year resident of the Morongo Basin. Thank you, council and management, for listening to our community input. And I thank Councilman Dennison, Mayor, for the extensive amount of time that you've given to us to explain some of the situations. I know I can speak for myself, being here for 40 years. I can't tell you the last time I came to a town council meeting other than starting after Doug's presentation in June. All of these people in this room and online are very busy people. Normally, we would never attend these meetings. Some even had to change airline tickets to be here. So I appreciate the fact that you are listening to what we have to say, because it is important. And there are important trends that the community sees that's happening to our animals. I know we can do better. And I told Rick the other day when we spoke, you can meet all of the federal, state, and county guidelines and probably still euthanize 90% of the animals. We're not some wacko animal rights people here. We're just normal Joe Blow citizens here of the Morongo Basin. And we came out over the last few meetings and over the last few months because we're frustrated and we want to see change. We're not going to We're not going to do with just status quo. We know you can do better. And when you just start with the basics of advertising the animals that are coming into the shelter and giving the community the ability to network these animals, it'll make and start making a difference. So again, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Greg Herring, and then Deborah Hoffman.
Hi, good evening. I'm Greg Herring, 35-year resident of the Morongo Basin. And the folks that you see here behind us tonight, those online, is a small fraction of the community that is behind this effort in trying to make these changes. Appalled by the things that we have found, that nearly half the dogs are euthanized in our shelter here. And we're happy to hear that there are some small changes already started, and thank you, management team, for making that happen. I appreciate that. But I think most of us in here know, and I do from my military career and civil service career, that big changes generally meet with a lot of resistance. And the types and extent of the changes that are going to be required so that we can be a cut above the rest of the shelters in the community, which is what this community here is asking for, those type of changes will meet with resistance from the leadership and staff of the shelter that have lived with status quo for years. The only way in my career that I've learned that you take care of this is to change leadership. So I'm saying, bring in a visionary. Bring in a visionary to manage our shelter. Someone that has the ability to think outside the box. Doesn't just think status quo is okay, standards are okay. Let's get the adoptable animals back out there. Let's get reuniting pets with their families a priority, finding homes for those lost and abandoned dogs, rehabilitating dogs that are troubled so that they can be adoptable as per the California Hayden Act, so that we can drastically reduce the euthanasia rate. Change starts at the top. Change the leadership out there. Thank you.
Deborah Hoffman, and then Valda Kendovich.
Hello, my name's Debbie Hoffman. I'm the one that rescued the dog you see on the poster. It was late at night. I turned my car around. He jumped in my car willingly. We got to our destination. I didn't know what to do, so I ended up staying the night with him in my car. The next morning, I called the animal shelter. Very reluctant to do so, but I did. And they assured me that he would definitely be seen by a vet. He would be seen by a vet, then they would try to locate his owner, and then if they didn't locate his owner, they would definitely put him out for adoption. Meanwhile, I'm finding people to adopt this sweet, sweet boy. And, well, they put him down before people even got to even view him. And it's really broke my heart. It's left a scar because I was told these things were going to happen, and they didn't. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Valda Kendovich, and then Cheryl Contopoulos.
Hi, Valia Kendovich, Yucca Valley. I want to thank the town council for allowing us to speak. I have an extensive corporate background, Fortune 500 companies, commodity trading, financial investments, managed million-dollar business plans. I say that because I can see where there is a lot of room for efficiency. And one of my jobs was productivity and employee hiring, productivity training, etc. Anyway, this is the dog that Deborah was talking about. This is just one of the dogs. So how Deborah and I met is I lost my home in Rancho Mirage in 2013, got on my knees and I prayed. And I said, God, if you find me a place that I can afford with the little bit of money I have left, I promise I'll devote the rest of my life to animals. And that's what I have done. And from now until my last breath, I will champion animals. A friend of mine knows that, sent me this screenshot of a woman who had gone on missing on Morongo Pets about a dog she needed help with. It happens to be Miss Hoffman. We use Missing Pets in Morongo Basin because there are no other resources here. There are none. Shelter doesn't help. So we're all networking. Hey, did you see the dog? Yeah. And then it gets run over. Right before this dog, there was a German Shepherd that was quote unquote liquefied, as one of the more colorful Facebook people said. So when I saw this dog, I said, I'm not letting it happen. This dog, because Debbie wanted to get help for the dog and she wanted to do the right thing and she wanted to give the dog a chance, Animal Control picked the dog up on May 29th, okay? The ID number is here, 052924C2. I had to call like 5 different times to get that number. People drop dogs on cats off. I'll guarantee you, a lot of them don't even get numbers. No number, no tracking, more deaths. So every single day, the community and I called about this dog. We had people all lined up. The net is, I went down to the shelter. I demanded to see the dog. The dog was friendly, wagging its tail. It was geriatric. I was told by Doug, the manager, it's aggressive. I said, it's not aggressive. Didn't lunge, it didn't, he goes, it's aggressive. The net is, he wouldn't let me do anything. He wouldn't let me adopt the dog. He wouldn't let me take photos. He wouldn't let rescues come down and meet the dog. And the dog was euthanized right after. This is unacceptable.
Cheryl Contopoulos and then Susan Burnett.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, Captain, community members. I'm going to read this because otherwise I'll lose my train of thought. When I retired, I wanted to become more involved with my community. I began going to coffee with the mayor. As a part of my grandson's homeschooling about government and being involved, I brought him to coffee and he met Mayor Bob. Shook hands. I want him to be a responsible citizen. We tell our kids, you see something, you say something. We are blessed to have a caring community full of people who rescue, foster, adopt, and coordinate connecting fur families. This room is full of those people and many, many more who cannot be here tonight. In June, I spoke about the lack of a volunteer program at Yucca Shelter and that volunteers could help post online. You don't have to be by what somebody else might call a vicious animal. The Yucca Valley Shelter is now posting pets, but 12, 10, is that really all that's in the shelter right now? We don't know. Yes, San Bernardino County does post within an hour of an intake. I recognize that there are software programs that may cost money. You write a grant. As a manager, you look at how can we improve, how can we grow, how can we not just help the community, but these animals. This group also includes people who post for Apple Valley, Devore, and Coachella shelters. Why? Because they put their red list available. And so people are out there not just fighting for somebody who's on Pet Finder. I have adopted for Pet Finder from another county because I found dogs. I've helped rescue, and when shelters are full, fosters are also full. So when you rescue a dog, you have to take it somewhere. One in particular 2 years ago was immediately determined by the Yucca Valley Shelter not to be adoptable. This same dog showed zero aggression when we sat on the ground trying to get him to come close enough to our slip leashes. He didn't show aggression the next day when he was trapped, and the trap was lifted into the back of a truck, driving up to the shelter. When the crate was taken out. Nothing. He didn't even look panicked. Anyway, I can't speak to what happened while he was at the shelter, but he was determined not adoptable, highly likely because he was an unaltered male pitty mix. Fortunately for this dog, he was pulled and taken to Joshua Tree. There he was a joy to walk, loved playing ball and belly rubbed, and my grandson and I, who is 10, Mayor Bob met, co-walked him and another pit bull female together, along with other dogs. He does the cat cuddles. He's a 10-year-old. Loose dogs are a community issue. How the issues are handled by the shelter is a community issue. Town council can help solve and bring about a needed change, including be an outstanding example of how new ways or better thinking can be done. It would be great to see one council member have oversight and look at the reports. To me, those numbers jump out. Thank you.
Susan Burnett, and then Patricia Miklas.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for letting us speak tonight. And we will continue to show up and speak until we see the changes that we want at our community shelter. I forgot to mention this last week, but I think it's a town shelter in Victorville has made a lot of changes recently, and they have agreed to be technically a no-kill shelter, meaning they will only euthanize in cases of severe injury or illness. And they've also started a bunch of new programs there, so I highly encourage you to look into that. They are doing waivers of licensing fees. They're doing vaccination clinics. They are making it more affordable for people to come and pick up their dog from the shelter when it gets out and gets loose and they have to come. And because a lot of times we see on our social media pages, the missing pets page, that people can't afford to go get their dog when it ends up in the shelter. And, you know, there are people in our community who may not keep their dogs in well enough, but I have a husky, so I'll just say in my experience, you know, sometimes accidents happen, you know, and, you know, when you show up at the shelter and your dog isn't licensed and you know, so you have to pay the licensing fee and you have to pay the hundreds plus something fee to get the dog back out of the pound, it can be, you know, cost prohibitive. You know, we live in a low-income community for a lot of people, and so they don't have that money. So anyway, I'm rambling, but all of that to say that Victorville has a lot of really cool programs that they're starting at their city shelter, and I would really encourage you guys to look into that because while, you know, as the manager said, some things are costly, but, you know, some things aren't. Social media presence really could make a difference here. And I just totally lost my train of thought. Anyway, thanks for letting me speak, and I do just want to reiterate again, as other people have said, we do want to change, and we're not going to stop showing up and asking for these changes until we get them. Thanks.
Next, we have Patricia Miklas, and then Nora Frazier, you're on deck.
Hi, I'm Patricia Miklas, and I really don't want to talk, but I was encouraged to be here to share just my slice of this issue. And a few minutes ago, I was overcome with emotion. So if someone could make me be serious and not cry. I wound up having a good experience, but I need to calm down. I've lived here almost 30 years. I live in Joshua Tree. I'm a retired teacher. I love living here. I've had dogs. I've never been alone without a dog for 46 years, but I wanted this one dog that I saw on Missing Pets in the Morongo Basin. And I really had to fight for him, and if it hadn't been for the two people that rescued him and brought him to the shelter to be safe, I don't
well, I wouldn't have him if it wasn't for them pushing me, because I just wanted that dog. I already have dogs. I wanted that dog. I saw his picture and I knew he had to be my dog. So as I said, I've been in this community for a long time, and going to that shelter was everything I wanted to say today. Is not what's coming out of my mouth right now, but it was the most unsettling and unpleasant experience I've ever had in this community, with any business or any government agency, even with sometimes irate parents at school, but they look great compared to what I experienced. I had to really fight for this dog, and I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but the words that I thought of, because I talked to the people I love my vets and they love me. I told them about this dog. They knew about him because he had been to I will give the shelter credit for bringing him. Oh my gosh, this timer. I wish teachers had these timers. But anyway, I wish students had these timers. They did take him, he did get treated for kennel cough. I happened to be there when he was leaving, and I shared my experience with the people at the vet, and I came up with these words. I felt the most dismissive I've ever felt by any agency or business in this community. I felt like I walked out of there like feeling, am I a piece of shit, or did I do something wrong? I felt insignificant. I want to give this dog a great home because he's home watching reruns of BNP Paribas right now, having a great time at home. Oh my gosh, I have 6 seconds. But my point is, it was a horrible experience that if I hadn't fought for that dog, he would not be quiet. I saw the Academy Awards the other night. I can fight this. All I can tell you is it was a bad experience, and I've worked with the no-kill shelter for so long, and I've adopted all my cats from there, and it's nothing but a joyful experience. If it weren't for 2 people pushing me, I would not have Gunner, and he would not be watching tennis right now. Okay.
Next is Nora Frazier, and then Evelyn Hanna.
Do I do this, or do you?
I do it.
Oh, you do it? Okay.
Thanks.
Nora Frazier, 25 years up here. First of all, I'd like to contradict the idea that volunteers need so much supervision, because I'll bet you have some volunteers here who could run that place. The people who are running it are the ones who need the supervision. I just want to talk about my personal experience up there. Years ago, before it was the new place, I moved my mother from a mobile home up to a house, not far from the shelter. But she was going to be alone in a house, and there was a yard, and I thought, I'd like to get her a high-profile dog, but one she can control. So I went up to the old shelter. It was run by volunteers. I was allowed to wander around, look at all the dogs. There were cats in the office. There were cat cages where they could see people. It was a warm and wonderful place. After I'd seen all the dogs, volunteers came up to me. What are you looking for? I said, well, I'd like a nice high-profile dog for my mother, who's an elderly woman living alone, but one she can control. So they go, oh, Rocky, let's get Rocky. So they bring Rottweiler kind of a mix. And I go, well, that dog might pull my mother over. Oh, no, there's an older woman who comes and walks Rocky all the time. More volunteers. So I said, okay, well, maybe he can't jump in and out of the car. Well, let's go see, the volunteer says. And we go, and the dog jumps in and out of the car. So I take the dog. He turned into a service dog. My mother, who had worked in hospice, ended up working with the dog with Alzheimer's people. Anyway, it was amazing, and I owe it all to the volunteers. Now, about my visit up to this new facility, which was new for me a couple months ago. I went up there. I was floored by how beautiful that place is. Empty and not a soul in there. So I wander in,
and some woman comes out of the darkness, like I have intruded, and her attitude is like, "What do you want?" So I said, "Oh, I was thinking about a companion dog for my dog." So I start to go see the dogs, and she's right there. But she won't answer one single question. There are more empty cages than there are dogs. She won't answer one question about the dogs. I tried to tell her about my mother's, experience with Rocky. She didn't want to hear it. So I got the feeling this woman wants to get rid of me. She won't tell me anything about like the 4 dogs they had. There wasn't another soul in there. So as on my way out, I go, "Oh, there's cats." She goes, "They're all adopted." And she wouldn't let me go in the cat room. And when I left, I felt like that lady. I felt like, what's wrong with me? Do I have bad breath? Do I have spinach in my teeth? Is there a booger in my nose? Why did she treat me that way? And then I found out that's the way everybody gets treated up there.
Evelyn Hanna, and then next is Meredith Kuchan.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Hanna. Nice to see you all again. I was here a couple weeks ago. I was speaking to you about Blazer and my experience with the shelter. I've had a few experiences with the shelter. I did get a call from Doug Smith after I called one of you, and I'm not sure, Rick Dennison, who it was, but I did call somebody after my experience with the shelter in the town, because I have worked with the town. I'm a proud business owner in this town for 15 years, okay? I'm in Old Town Yucca Valley, and I love being here. I take pride in my store, I take pride in my community, and I pay my taxes, I pay my State Board of Equalization. I do all the things I'm supposed to do. And when Blazer came into my life, unfortunately, over and over and over again, the owner would not take responsibility for him, and he was injured. I took him to the shelter. I left my name, I left my number, I called, I said, if anything happens, where you feel you can't adopt him and you're gonna euthanize him, please call me. I will take him. Blazer was adopted out and returned within 2 days and then euthanized. He was one, he was sweet, and it was unnecessary. They said that he was a bad dog and he was unadoptable, okay? So I called someone at the town, and no, I'm not the person that writes down everybody's name and remembers a year later who I spoke with. But I left a long message, and Doug Smith got back to me, and I ripped him a new asshole because I was pissed. Because you would have been pissed too, because he was a sweet guy. And I want to know who's responsible for hiring Doug Smith. And whomever that may be, maybe there's a review that needs to happen, because he is the reason the shelter has gone down. And I don't believe it's you, because I believe all of you love animals and care what happens in this community to them. That's all we're asking. Maybe he's the problem. Thanks.
Meredith Kachan, and then Candy Moulton.
Hi again. I'm one of the admins of a Facebook group called Missing Pets in the Morongo Basin. Over 12,000 animal-loving locals use our group to post missing and found animals in an attempt to bring animals home. I'm also a 20-plus year resident of Yucca Valley. I'm concerned that your confidence in a positive outcome for your operational review doesn't address the main complaint of reducing kill rates. It simply reviews procedural issues, which I'm guessing will be found to be compliant, with a possible exception to more community outreach needed. What we need is policy change. Yucca Valley taxpayers funded a state-of-the-art shelter, yet shelter director Doug Smith seemingly makes zero effort to house animals longer term, pursue adoptions, work with rescues. He doesn't even allow volunteers. Many shelters have shifted away from higher kill rates, including our neighbors, Joshua Tree, 29 Palms, and Victorville. In 2023, Yucca Valley killed 40 dogs and 17 cats each month. That is half of all intakes. These animals were euthanized without sedation and continue to be. These numbers and these procedures may be compliant with regulations, but they are unacceptable to our community. We demand that our shelter does better. We won't be satisfied by a procedural review that tells us everything is fine. It's absolutely not. We want policy change that saves lives. I'm going to echo, replacing Doug Smith with a compassionate leader with a vision for the future would be a good start.
Candy Moulton, and then James Porter, you're on deck.
Hi, I'm back. I'm just going to read what I wrote. I'd like to make a proposal for there to be an oversight type committee or a board like we have for other departments. I'd also like to see more of a partnership with the community. I hear things like, we don't have money for this or that, but I tell you what, this high desert loves our animals, and you'd be amazed at how people will step up with donations, fundraising, events for particular projects. They will do it. They'll make it happen. In every agency, there's always room for improvement, and to say that you're all bad or all good is just missing the whole point. I hope the things that we say here today are not getting lost and some real truth comes forward. First, I know that they have a grueling job and a daunting task, but let's make this not so. Having to do the most unpleasant task of all has to take a toll on a person's soul. Let's get creative and find better ways. Let's make every euthanasia be the exception and not the norm, done as humanely as possible and as very, very, very last resort, and only to end the suffering of an animal. Allow there to be another set of eyes, i.e. evaluations by dog behaviorists, veterinarians. Let's switch things up a bit. When being given constructive criticism doesn't mean everything you do is bad. It just means that you can do better. In life, we all must be willing to look at that and learn and grow from it, or step aside and find someone who is willing to. This should not be a black and white issue, period. I think it's abundantly clear that something's wrong. The real-life experiences that were shared at the last meeting and this one should not be taken lightly, with reasons and excuses to come up with why we're all wrong and our perceptions are misguided. Please don't do that. Let's get some outside experts to come in when a dog is deemed unadoptable. Let's have others help with that decision and see if a professional trainer can work with them. If you think that's really unaffordable, then use volunteers and even private solicitations to help. Let's leave no stone unturned and do everything humanly possible to make this shelter an award-winning, happy place, and the whole community can be proud of. It's hard to be excellent at what you do, but I think we have the right to demand it. In the public sector, that's how businesses are run and that are successful. Amen and amen.
James Porter, and then Cheyenne May.
Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. My name is James Porter. I spoke last time. I am a 40-year resident of the area and a 30-year employee of the Sheriff's Department. By trade, I am a Sheriff's Captain. I want to start by acknowledging the last time we had one of these meetings, there was a young woman from the shelter who spoke. I think her name was Ari. Was that Ari? Ari? Then we can nod there. Whoever her name is. Very, very courageous. And I want to say, like, that is what leadership looks like. I don't know her role at the shelter, but the fact that she was willing to step up in front of an arguably hostile audience and say, like, hey, we're decent people and we're trying our best is admirable. And we should acknowledge the fact that she had the courage to do that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about numbers. So I talked numbers last time. Last time I mentioned how it was somewhere around 34% of Yucca Valley's dogs were euthanized according to a report that the city staff received. Since then, the High Desert Star reported a much higher number of around 46%. for 2023. So I want to give you some apples to apples numbers. Yucca Valley is an intake shelter, meaning that they receive dogs from animal care services from the public. They are not a rescue shelter like Joshua Tree that kind of gets to pick and choose their pets. Obviously, I am a huge supporter of Joshua Tree, but I still want to show you how glaringly bad the numbers look. So I did some comparison. I pulled public records for 2 area intake shelters, Devore and San Bernardino City. San Bernardino City shelter is regularly lambasted as just a horrible high-kill shelter. So I got their intake list, their outcome list, and I reviewed the last 1,401 animals who were housed at the San Bernardino City shelter, right? Horrible shelter. Their kill rate was 15%. I pulled the last 4 years of numbers from Devore, a San Bernardino County animal shelter that is an intake shelter. So I took out 2021 and 2022, 2021, 2022, because those were COVID years and a little wonky. But I do have those numbers if anybody wants to see them. 2019, total dog intake, 2,169, euthanasia rate, 11.7%. 2023, total dog intake, 3,187 dogs, 21.4% euthanasia rate. Yucca Valley is over double that if we believe the Height as Our Stars numbers. So I say this, as I've said last time, I love this city. I've lived here a long time. I spent much of my career here. I believe we're trying to do our best, but I'm just going to say what I said last time. Government moves when it's uncomfortable. So our job is to make government uncomfortable. If we want a better shelter system, we fight for it. We come here every 2 weeks and we talk. We talk for our 3 minutes. We don't wait 90 days. I know an operational review has to happen. I get it. I work in government. But in that 90 days, 100 dogs are going to die in that shelter. We shouldn't wait. We can do better right now, today. According to Transparent California, Doug Smith made $153,000 last year in pay and benefits. Tell me that he's earning that money, and everybody here, keep coming and keep talking.
Next, we have Cheyenne May.
Hi, I'm Cheyenne. I am the operations director down at the Palm Springs Animal Shelter, and I'm also a Yucca Valley resident. So I come here with over 15 years of professional animal welfare experience, working from anything from a small rescue to the city of Palm Springs Animal Shelter to national organizations. And it's fine and dandy to be following the law to the T and everything, but unless you can't do that. You can follow the law to a T, as somebody mentioned, and euthanize 90% of the animals in your care. Without the help of your community, you're gonna get nowhere. You can use Palm Springs Animal Shelter as a good example of what it was and what it is now, and what Yucca Valley Animal Shelter can be. Palm Springs Animal Shelter in the 90s, when I grew up, was a terrible place. You didn't take an animal there. Just like the residents here, we networked animals as best we could without the internet. We found friends, family to adopt or foster these animals before we took them to a shelter, because a dog and a cat, nobody's been really talking about cats. Cats have it just as bad here, if not worse. They didn't come out of the shelter alive without somebody intervening and fighting for that animal, and that's what your residents here are doing, and they shouldn't have to do that. They should be able to volunteer instead. Instead of networking themselves, they should be able to help you. At the Palm Springs Animal Shelter, what happened was volunteers came in and helped the shelter become a private, nonprofit partnership with the public agency to be able to become a no-kill shelter. And if you look at the trends throughout the country, that is how shelters are becoming no-kill animal shelters. That is how shelters are achieving those rates. So I implore you to look at that option. I really hope that I hear from the city here as a shelter that can help with ideas of simple things like a software doesn't cost $40,000 a year. I pay nothing for my software. There are grants. I implore you to look maybe for a volunteer that can help with providing the city with grant help and grant proposal help, because that will get you so far. And just having volunteers, if you don't want them, I get liability purposes, I understand that. So if you don't want, volunteers handling the animals directly, all those other services, having somebody helping welcome people into the lobby and figure out what they're there for, helping them figure out how they can afford the fees. Is it really worth killing an animal for a $100 fee that somebody can't afford to get their animal back? Simple things like reducing fees and things like that we did to become a no-kill animal shelter in Palm Springs. I hope that we hear from you.
That's all the cards I have.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that has not spoken, has not filled out a card that would like to speak, online or in person? You would come on up, tell us your name and city of residence, and if you could go see Leslie and fill out a card.
My name is Cindy Doyle, and I have been a resident here for about 20 years. I retired here from LA. When I was in LA, I had a design company, but I also was a partner in a nonprofit dog rescue. And I dealt with and interacted with all the high kill shelters, Carson Shelter, South Central, San Bernardino, a lot with Moreno Valley. And one of the things I used to tell people is that you think the shelter is a shelter, and you think the employees there work there because they love animals, and nothing could be farther from the truth. That has been my experience. And I've been rescuing dogs I'm 71, for 35 years. And I recently had a conversation with my sister, and I said, people work at the shelters because it's a government job or a state, whatever, and they have great benefits. But they don't work there because they love animals and have a heart for them. And that is still my opinion. I'm going to shift to an experience I had probably about a year ago. There was a sweet, skinny, beat-up black lab puppy that was hanging out at the Landers post office. And people were posting and showing pictures, and people were coming and feeding it. And everybody was saying, don't call the shelter, do not call the shelter. And everybody was networking and trying to find a foster. And so finally, when nobody was stepping up able to foster, I put on there, I'll go get the dog. I now, as an older person, single, no kids, I adopt. When I adopt only special needs and senior dogs. All dogs deserve a home regardless of age and regardless of condition. So I had a lot of small special needs dogs, distemper dogs that were survivors, mange survivors. I have a dog with a seizure disorder, blah, 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 you name it. Finally, I said, I'll go get the dog. Went over there to get the dog, and we had put posters everywhere. And I went to get the dog, and it wasn't there, and somebody posted it. I finally got fed up because nobody was stepping up, and I called the shelter. I went to the shelter. She said, yeah, the dog's here. Lovely gal, lovely, but very resistant to give me any information. But because I have the history in kind of the world of animal rescue, I was asking her, did this happen? Did this happen? What about this? Did you do this? And she was I had to pull information out of her. And so basically the bottom line was they did pick up the dog. I said, I'm going to keep track on the puppy, and if nobody comes to step up, I'll come and get the dog. I came the second day, I think it was, after it was available, and he had been euthanized. This is a 1-year-old black lab. Can I speak one more second? And I asked her why, and she said he had a sniffy, runny nose. I said, kennel cough. Dogs get it when I said, you're circulating air, whatever. And I said, you can't give them antibiotics? You couldn't, you couldn't call me? I gave you my name. I gave you all my information. I could have relieved you of the problem. Instead, they euthanized a 1.5, 2-year-old, adorable, sweet black lab puppy. That's what we're up against. That's why we're frustrated. We love animals. Our lives center around them. Our choices we make in life are based on that compassion and that commitment to these innocent ones. And that's what we're asking you to do. Not just have the same heart that we do, but honor your community. Honor the passions that we have and the nobility that we have, that we're stepping up where you're dropping the ball. So please hear us, please try, please work with us, because we're talking about innocent, precious lives that deserve
Okay, thank you. I'm
by
sorry.
giving them. That's, no, we're.
Otherwise, we have to give everybody else more time. Thank you. Is there anyone else? We have one more person. Two.
Tora Edwards.
Hello, my name is Tora Edwards, and I have run a grassroots nonprofit dog and cat rescue in this town in Yucca Valley for 13 years. I am partnered with DeVore. I have rescued many dogs from DeVore when Doug Smith was in charge there. I've worked with him, and I fulfilled every interaction I had with him when he would give me 2 hours to make a plan to get a dog out, which is not easy. It takes transporters, it takes pullers, it takes all of the pieces that fit. I honored and he honored, and we worked it, and we did this. And it had a very high kill rate at that time. I worked for years pulling dogs, rescue only, because I am partnered, and I can do that. I can take the dogs that the public cannot see. I work with those dogs. I bought 28 acres in the Yucca Valley so I could have room and space. It's surrounded by open land also, so dogs can heal. And those rescue-only dogs that were deemed unadoptable all got adopted and went on to happy lives. What I say about our rescue is animals, dogs and cats, bring people together. It takes all of us because it is a big job and there's a lot of animals. I also volunteered for years with Animal Action League down in Thermal, down in Mecca. I speak Spanish, so I was their Spanish interpreter. I would get the dogs off the streets, bring them to my shelter, the ones that were abandoned and don't have homes. And it's just a huge job, what the people who are doing these jobs with animals, for everyone, in the shelters, in the rescues, the people here. It takes all of us. Dogs and cats and animals bring people together. As Gandhi said, we can judge our society as to how we treat our animals. Thank you.
Looks like we have one more.
Bunny Ginger.
Hello, my name is Bunny. I'm 17. I live in Yucca Valley, and I have for about 5 years. I love animals, and I have all my life. Honestly, they might be like the one thing keeping me going since I don't have a dad anymore. I have about 2 years of volunteer experience that are on record, but a lot more besides that. And when I finally became old enough to spare my time to reliably help others with animals, I tried to volunteer at the Yucca Valley Animal Shelter, and despite my 3 certified references, they turned me away and told me that they didn't need my help because they had prisoners volunteering. My point is that there are people who want to help and people who can help, people who are very good at helping. Take their help, it'll help.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right. Well, thank you very much, and we appreciate it.
So, Council, if I might, before
Sure.
you have your comments, I just wanted to thank the public for coming out. As your town manager, all of the operations of the town, including the animal shelter, at the end of the day, are under my responsibility. All of your staffing decision is under my responsibility. So to the public and to the community and to the council, the buck, or in this case, the bark, stops here. I understand that, and we're committed to ensuring, as I said earlier, to continue that operational review. What we don't want to present to the council or to the public is inaccurate information, incomplete information, recommendations that don't have the requisite data and decision points that go along with it. As you know, as a council, you're responsible for not only your animal shelter operation, but your animal control operation, community services, recreation, public safety, our contract with the Sheriff's Department, Public Works, community development, all of the other things that go into a municipal operation. This is one portion of that. It's a very important portion of it, but is one portion, and you can't make decisions in a vacuum or in a bubble without having the requisite information. So that's what we're committed to providing you based on not only the comments that you heard tonight, but also the comments that you heard 2 weeks ago. We're committed to bringing that back to you and sharing it with the public in an open and transparent manner of what that shows, what our recommendations are, and along the way, making those incremental changes where we can, as your deputy town manager discussed with you this evening. Just wanted to make sure that the community and the council, again, was aware of that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's bring it back to the council. Let's start on the left. Anybody over here want to say anything?
Well, I would like to thank the public for coming out again and expressing comments and sharing those comments and experiences and suggestions and recommendations for improvement. I think we can all agree that we can all look to do better, not just here, but especially here in this regard this evening. I was a town staff member for 21 years, but a few of those years back around 2012, 13, I was responsible for the operations of the animal shelter and animal control. And that was back when we had the old shelter. And during that time, we were building the new shelter. At the old shelter, I would beg to differ with the comment that was run by volunteers. It was not, although there were some very kind people that did come, and I think their status was that they were volunteers, a few of them, and they were very kind, animal-loving people that helped out up there. I was proud to be part of developing the new shelter. I think there's a big improvement in that facility. My experience was that the staff then and ever since, and I know there's other opinions, but my experience was that all of the people that work at the shelter love animals and are there because they love animals. That was my experience. What else? I think we can do better. I think there's a couple of areas that I've heard in terms of volunteer program, in terms of social media leading to adoptions. I think that's something that we can look into. I appreciate staff's report this evening. I appreciate staff's report and the look forward to the 90 days. Look forward to that 90-day mark, but also the incremental steps that you've promised us. So thank you.
Councilmember Dennison.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It's a shame everybody doesn't want to continue to hear the discussion, but I don't want to leave it lopsided. Excuse me. I've listened to everyone, and there was someone here tonight that before they probably walk out also, which was Evelyn. I think maybe she's still here. I did reply back to her the next day. I thanked her for attending. I thanked her for engagement. I thanked her for her comments. I also said that it's a reminder of how much better we can do. So if there was anyone else here, which I wish I could have asked, that I did not respond to, because I responded to countless people, by mail, by phone calls, texts, providing information, receiving information. I'm very thankful for everybody that helped contribute. James' comment, thank you for Reevy. She's a very brave young lady. I think that was great of her for the shelter, stepping up last time. There are powerful people out there that can move the needle and make changes. I'm an animal person. I've had pets my whole life. I have 2 dogs at home right now. They're treated better than I am. They're my family. My daughter, same thing. She's growing up with a family of animals. And my youngest, Velda, she goes out and finds pets that are not even fit for some people to even own. They all have something wrong with them, health problems, physical problems, but she thinks she can save the world. She's that kind of person. And all of her pets like that, and she loves them more than anything. So I understand that. One time, I was trying to get her one of her first pets. And so I go to a place that many of you have spoke of, the no-kill shelter, in a town adjacent to ours. And I go out there. I was going to surprise her with her first cat. And I went there. And I found out later that they turned me down for the adoption because they felt I wasn't suitable to own the cat. And so I understand your disappointment. That happened to me. And I just had to reflect on myself and move on. I'm not going to argue with someone about it. And I'm not saying you're wrong, because you guys should be here bringing up your points of view too. But I just tried to look to be a better person on that one. It's just a story where sometimes communication just fails. Sometimes it doesn't work. And I just want to know that I'm here. I'm trying to listen to everybody. And there are some here that says that I haven't reached out to them. I have talked about other things that we can do. You guys have brought up a lot of good things. I want to lower a lot of the barriers to adoption. I want to make it easier for people to maintain their pets should they choose to get them spayed or neutered. We've talked about these different programs. One that I heard earlier was food banking, things when people may not be able to keep their dogs and may have to turn them over or try to find another adopter. These are a lot of things we're talking about in the background, and I hope that everybody understands to continue to talk to us. You can still, as I said in our last meeting at the end, you can email me, you can call the clerk of the town, she'll give you my personal phone number anytime, you can reach out on social media. I really can't be your advocate if people aren't going to communicate with me. And when people find out that, or say that we have not communicated, but I have a letter that was sent to everybody. So I want to be here, I want to help, I want to be part of the process. And so continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the right. Councilmember Lombardo.
I'm very much in favor of us trying to improve. I like to communicate with the community on what needs to change. Looking forward to the report. I don't know how practical or not, but would a moratorium on euthanasia be possible in the cases where it's not for helping a distressed animal or one in a situation where it's suffering, but the ones that are deemed not adoptable and that sort of thing, maybe it's until we can resolve the situation, that seems reasonable. But I don't know the logistics of it. If it's 40 animals a month, that might fill the shelter too quickly. But it seems reasonable to think that maybe we could slow down on the euthanasia on the animals that are not suffering and that are just deemed not adoptable, or as long as they're not, actually violent to the handlers or that sort of thing. But it seems that there should be some way to slow it down and save as many animals as possible. I think it's important that we get a method to get volunteers into the shelter if it is at all feasible, but I need to know more information, obviously. It may be an economic problem. We have to look into that more, because when you spend money one place, you have to take it from somewhere else. We're usually pretty fiscally responsible with the way that we distribute our money, and we want to just make sure we're meeting our priorities. But I think this is something necessary for us to look into, and it is of importance. It's obvious that the community supports a better shelter, whatever that is. We need to find out about it, and I'm a firm believer in volunteers. People that love what they're doing always do a better job. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and speaking your minds. Those on line as well. It takes a bit to speak in public, and we do appreciate hearing from you in a calm and sensible way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Abel.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone that came out today. It was really nice that people were testifying or sharing today. It wasn't just a rehash of the meeting 2 weeks ago, because we did hear that very clearly. So it was really great that people were bringing up new ideas and issues, and it wasn't just repeating what was said before. So I appreciate that. I did take a whole lot of notes, and these are the questions I'll be asking staff in this next future as they're evaluating the shelter. I do appreciate we're going through the operational review. I do agree that we have a lot of areas that we can grow in. My question to staff is that we're in partnership with San Bernardino County, so it's not just our pets that are going to the shelter, it's pets that are all in the county area as well that are coming to us. Any operational changes, do we have to run those through and get approval through the county?
As a joint shelter operation, we would advise and consult with our county partners on almost all of our operational potential changes, or they'll be part of this review as well.
Okay. That's wonderful. I'll reserve my judgment until I get all the facts from staff and so forth. The numbers that were shared are alarming, and obviously, I think those that stuck around to the entire meeting last time knew that, you know, we are a compassionate council and that we do want to make some changes that are going to be meaningful and not just meet minimum standards, but be better than that. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I just want to say thanks to everyone for being here and giving us your comments, and everybody in their cars driving home. Thank you. Hopefully they hear me. Anyway, I'm going to give this some time to percolate a little bit so I can think about it. You know, there are a lot of great comments. I do want to say that the one thing I don't like is generalizations, like the staff or the people that work at the animal shelter, the staff there don't care. And I don't like personal attacks using people's names. That makes me kind of zone out a little bit, I have to say. So I really don't appreciate that. But there were a lot of great public comments here, and I know I'm going to wait the 90 days and see what happens. And if we're not happy with it, then we'll move on and do more. But at this point, I'm going to wait the 3 months and see what happens and do my own research. In fact, maybe someone else can research this for me and let me know. On the lost and found pets of the Morongo Basin, or one of those groups, there are a lot of animals posted from Apple Valley. So about 3 months ago, I was kind of wondering like how true that was. Are they really killing so many animals? And I called there and they said yes. And they said because Victorville is giving them their animals. So how does that relate? Apple Valley to Victorville, was that a true comment from the employee? Or is Victorville giving their animals to Apple Valley and Apple Valley has to put them down, and then Victorville calls themselves a no-kill shelter? So that would be something to maybe look at. I mean, something, because there's a difference between, when you're a no-kill shelter, sometimes they give animals to other shelters. So that's something to look at. So that's all I'm going to say, but I know everybody, even in Victorville and Apple Valley, people that work there, I'd say 99% probably love the animals. That's why they're there. And the same thing with Yucca Valley. So that's my last comment. And anybody else? No? Okay, so that's the end of that item. This is receive and file. So that's perfect. We'll move on to item number 6. Budget report for the 6 months ending December 31st, 2024.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll wait to see if you can hear me, and I'll share my screen once it's up on the presentation there.
We can hear you, Jordan. You're good to go as soon as you get your screen up there.
Great. All right. I will be presenting the mid-year budget review. So this is going to be reviewing the first 6 months of the fiscal year 24-25 financial results and some proposed budget amendments. So the town's mid-year budget review currently indicates year-to-date results are in line with the current amended budget. We adopted this budget back in May of 2024. So we take the first 6 months to review everything, review trends of both revenues and expenditures, see how they align with what we originally estimated, and then come back to council with recommendations to increase and decrease certain items as we've reviewed. And I'll go through first the first half, which will be just the current year results through December 31st. And then I'll go through what we propose are going to trend through year end. So beginning with the general fund, which is the town's main operating fund, we have our revenues here. This is the major revenue sources listed on the first slide. As you'll see here, the town's major revenue sources are generally collected later in the year, so after December 31st. So collections of 30 to 40% of budget is to be expected. And so most of these will be received towards year end, which would be June and July of 2025. Franchise fees is expected for year-to-date collections, mostly due to the timing of recognition for solid waste franchise fees, etc. So moving over to some of the other revenue sources of the general fund, you'll see here that interest revenues have outpaced budget expectations. That's mostly due to the successful portfolio management through the town's LAIF money market and Chandler asset management accounts. The remaining budget items that you see here are all trending in year-to-date expectations, with a total received so far of $7.6 million at 38% of the town's total general fund budget for the year. This is just a comparison of the visual of the last two slides there for the major revenue sources. Town staff monitors these revenue collections throughout the year. We provide internal memos to council on a monthly basis so that we keep you apprised of all of the trends and changes. And budget expectations, the next council review will be a quarterly budget review in April. So you'll see that third quarter of the fiscal year before we wrap up for year end in May and June. This here's a visual comparison of the general fund revenues compared to the prior year. So in comparison to prior year, the mid-year budget results yield varying increases and decreases across those major revenue sources. So just wanted to point out a couple. Property tax, TOT, and interest revenues, they have all demonstrated slight revenue growth in comparison to the prior year. So you'd be looking at the green line there compared to the blue. We do note some reductions in revenues for franchise fees and animal services. That's mostly due to the timing of payments received. We expect those to catch up through year end. And then you'll see sales tax and community development revenues are indicating slowed growth due to reduced year-to-date activity, and we expect those to stay slightly reduced in comparison to the prior year. So as I mentioned, town staff will continue to review the various trends and prepare budget adjustments. You'll see a few in this presentation here to get through year end, and as presented in the staff report that you have in the agenda. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to focus on one of the major revenue sources that's showing a declining trend, just so that I can give a concept for public and at town council on kind of the reasons why and where we expect it to move forward for year end. So sales tax is the town's only major revenue source that is currently demonstrating moderate reductions in activity year to date. The annual trend you'll see here is the 13th quarter through 2021. About a 3% decline in the local Bradley Burn sales tax year. That aligns with trends across Southern California region and statewide for sales tax activity. So Yucca is not alone in that decline there. Overall, it's attributed to sluggish economic conditions is what the terminology that you would use there. Mostly reduced consumer spending across all industries. So to give you kind of a little more detail on that. This is just a generalized industry performance as of Q3 2024, so through the end of the third quarter of last year. It's presented on a local, county, and state level. So you'll see across all the regions, one of the only or the only two industries that, showed growth over the year was grocery stores and casual dining. Most likely due to the fact that high costs of both of those, the groceries versus dining out, it remained the same. So both, it was kind of pick which one you'd prefer. But overall, high prices, high interest rates, and then the more restrictive credit standards are the greatest contributors to lower spending and consumers choosing to save rather than spend. So this is expected to be maintained through the end of 2025. There might be slight change occurring toward year end if and when the federal funding rates begin to reduce. So if they just decide to reduce those federal Treasury reserve rates, but otherwise we expect it to kind of stay this slightly stagnant through year end. So that's a very quick summary of the general fund revenues. Jumping over to expenditures, these are our major general fund expenditure categories. The town's spending remains well within budget with a higher percentage of operating supplies and services at 57% year to date because the town will have some prepaid expenditures that will be paid up front at the beginning of the year and then carry all the way through to the end of the fiscal year. So overall, expenditures at only 52% of the current amended budget for total spending year to date of $10.3 million. So just comparing trends, the big green mountain is in comparison to revenues, and these are our three major categories of personnel services, contract safety, and operating supplies and services. Contract safety remains a top priority of the town's spending plan. So while it looks like it's slightly reduced in this year, that's just because the town is able to utilize the Measure Y fund. So there's an additional 25% of contract safety spending that's allocated in that fund and is not represented in this graph here. The growth in town programs and services are attributable to the year-to-year growth patterns for personnel and operating supplies and service costs. Great. So there's a few proposed budget adjustments based off of year-to-date trends and expectations to get through the end of the fiscal year. So looking at revenues here, it's recommended to apply moderate increases to the revenue sources listed here: property tax, TOT, interest revenues, and administrative revenues based off of year-to-date activity, with that slight reduction in sales tax by $250,000 to accommodate those trends that I mentioned earlier. So overall revenues will be proposed to be increased by $275,000 for fiscal year 24-25. Looking at expenditures, a majority of the proposed for adjustment are based off the various departments' projections, so it'd be for expanded programs and services. There are a few categories that are solely attributed to just increased costs. That is mostly within the insurance and utilities segments, although some of the utility increases is due to increased facility and field usage. So overall, the total expenditures are projected to increase by $366,000 through year end. So the town's spending for the general fund is guided by the town's reserve policy. The unrestricted projected reserve fund balance for the general fund needs to remain within 60 to 65% of annual expenditures. So the current general fund balance is projected to remain at $18.4 million, with a total unrestricted reserves of 62% of annual expenditures, which is well within the reserve policy for the year. Just jumping over briefly to special revenue funds, town staff looks at each of those that are monitored for budget as they maintain separate fund balances for capital projects, improvements, annual grants, street maintenance. Year-to-date reviews do require some adjustments to the other special revenue funds related to sales tax activity, so those would include the Measure I fund, which is dedicated to streets and road maintenance. We're recommending a revenue reduction also of $250,000. And then revenue measures Y and Z are also affected by sales tax. Special revenue fund Measure Y is dedicated to the essential services for public safety, infrastructure, and quality of life. The revenue reduction would not affect any of the budget current amended budget for the year. We had some excess reserves, so they would not need to be adjusted at all. And then the same for revenue measure Z. It's dedicated to passing through funds for the town's annual sewer assessment costs. And again, that would just pass through, and we would not need to reduce expenditures this year. And then finally, there's a recommended allocation for the Capital Project Reserve Fund to fund the current year's berm repair and townwide concrete repair projects for additional repair costs expected through year end. The projected fund balance for that reserve fund is a total of $4 million remaining after this allocation. And just focusing in a little bit on revenue measures Y and Z, you'll see the sales tax trends through year end. The recently reauthorized revenue measures continue to provide significant resources to the town via the half-cent sales tax. Both funds are projected to contribute $2.6 million, which again will be attributed to those essential services within Measure Y and then the sewer assessment in Measure Z. So that concludes my brief presentation. The recommended action is to receive and file the mid-year budget report and then adopt the resolution amending the 24-25 general fund and special revenue fund budgets as presented in Exhibit A and Exhibit B. I'd be happy to answer any questions after public comment.
Mayor, just a couple of additional comments. Thank you, Jordan. That was terrific for going over that. One of the things that we talked about and that I wanted Jordan to spend some time on this evening is sales tax. We have 3 or 4 primary revenue categories: property tax, sales tax, your transit occupancy tax now, and then franchise fees and other, excuse me. As one of those primary legs of the stool, sales tax, we're starting to see that decrease now across economic activity. When we're in this industry, we've seen these cycles come and go, and we've been on this upward climb for a good portion of time, whether it was economic activity all the way through about 2020, 2021, and then really what we saw was inflation pushing up sales tax as well. So now you're starting to see some of that moderate, and we expect that to come down. So even though we're showing a decrease from our budget number is typically done on a conservative basis. So the net is probably even down further than we would have expected to see it. So we just want to get that out there to the council, to the community, that it is something that we're concerned with. I don't think that it's earth-shattering yet. As Jordan indicated, we feel that for 24-25, we're going to continue to meet your budget projections, and we're going to be okay. We're always cautious, and we always want to bring to the council a balanced budget, and so that's something that we are acutely aware of and will continue to monitor as we move forward. So with that, be happy to answer questions after public comment.
Thank you. So is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on item number 6 about the budget report? Online? No. Okay, bring it back to the council. Does anyone want to speak?
I was just curious, does the water district get the numbers on the measure that helps offset the sewer costs? Do they monitor to themselves, or do we give them the report that we're seeing declining numbers?
So we speak with them occasionally. We provide quarterly assessment pass-through payments, and then we also give them our budget estimates so that they can estimate their assessment reductions for the year. So we discuss with them briefly so that they would be receiving that information from us, that it will be reduced.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, Mayor, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There we go. Thank you for the report. It's very clear and easy to follow, as always. You have a real good knack for this. The Chandler Fund seems to have been a good decision made in the past, and the interest income has been very helpful this year. It's also good to see that we're maintaining the reserve that the council has recommended that we maintain. It seems like, and I'm thankful, that you are pointing out the areas that we may need to be a little concerned about, but looks overall that we're on the right track. We just got to be a little cautious of our spending in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and let's go to the left, Councilmember Dennison.
Yes, thank you, Jordan, for the presentation. I have one question. When you were looking at trends, you had mentioned casual dining had increased a little bit. Most of the other numbers were staying pretty even. There was one line item on the bottom where we're showing about a 1 or 2% change in state and or county and state numbers. It was down, but ours, we were almost at 12%, and that was in alcohol sales. Is casual dining and alcohol sales related? Is that parsed out in a restaurant that liquor is under a different label moved into alcohol sales?
So I would have, so basically, if the connection is, do restaurants contribute as restaurant sales increases, are they buying more of that from those local alcohol or liquor stores? I wouldn't know that correlation, but I can find out and follow up. But they're based off of just the separate sales tax accounts for each business, and then they aggregate those into the different industry types there.
Okay, I was just curious if those activities were related at all, but it is quite a jump for us at 12%.
Yeah, and they are. I think, as Jordan indicated, the sales tax category for fast casual typically does not include alcohol, and so you would have a different sales tax category for restaurants that have alcohol. And so that's probably the number that you're seeing on that type of retailer versus a fast casual that does not have alcohol.
And you may be absolutely right, thank you. Just the beginning of that lower statement, that last one, I couldn't see what the first few words were. And I believe they're more formal dining with probably liquor sales, so thank you. I don't need a reply, I was just curious if they rolled up together and you knew.
All right, Councilmember Schooler.
Yeah, I appreciate the report. Thank you, Jordan. It's with all the moving parts that we have with projects and services, it's good to see that we're keeping track of things. I appreciate the clarification on sales tax trend, if that's a trend. And also, I'm pretty impressed with our portfolio, the interest income. I'm really happy to see that. That's just good job. That's all. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Jordan. I don't have any follow-up questions, but thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Job well done.
Yes. So first of all, this is a receive and file, which we're doing, but it's also, we need to adopt the resolution number 25-XX, amending the budget, so, or the general fund. So does anybody want to make a motion on that?
Mayor, I'll move the item.
Okay.
Mayor Dennison will second.
All right.
Councilmembers Abel,
Yes.
Dennison.
Yes.
Lombardo.
Yes.
Schooler.
Yes.
And Mayor Droz.
Yes. Next, what's always fun is the land development report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're going to run through some of these projects relatively quick. You've heard us talking for some time about the Domino's Jersey Mike's building that's down in front of Stater Brothers East. That project is under construction. It's around a 4,000 square foot, 4-tenant space building. Supposedly 2 of the spaces are for Jersey Mike's and Domino's. The other 2 spaces have not been identified. This is the elevation of the structure as approved by the Planning Commission. Starbucks West, the permit has been issued. Construction has not started. We expect to see a contractor out there anytime in the near future. Here are the elevations of the structure as approved by the Planning Commission. Dutch Brothers has filed their application for the site in between Walgreens and Big 5 Sporting Goods. That is going through the review process. You're not going to get a cup of coffee right away. Why aren't you going to get a cup of coffee right away? There are Joshua trees on the site. They are going to have to go through an incidental take permit process with the State Department of Fish and Wildlife. So it's going to take a little bit of time. Hopefully they will move simultaneously. But Fish and Wildlife won't process it without a CEQA document. We're preparing the CEQA document as part of the land development review. So until our CEQA document is adopted and filed with the State Office of Planning and Research, Fish and Wildlife won't touch it. So it's going to be, your cup of coffee will be cold before it's ready. And those are the elevations. You're going to see something a little bit different than what you've seen in the community in the past. Sun Mesa Mini Storage is around a 90,000 square foot mini storage up off of north of Buena Vista on the east side of State Route 247, going through the review process. CEQA process is getting ready to kick off, hopefully here in the next couple of months. I think they're down to one special study in order to move that forward. Here are some elevations, of course, a typical mini storage facility. The Star Cafe, this is the old Diamond Automotive in the west end of town, went through Planning Commission. It's now approved for restaurant, retail, coffee shop, as well as alcohol sales. A big improvement. They have pulled their permits. They are under construction. They've had one inspection. This is what that site will look like as approved by the Planning Commission when it's finished. So it's very exciting to see these types of improvements coming to the Old Town area. Nice Dreams. That's the former Strata Tattoo Lounge building. It's been under reconstruction for some time. They had their drywall nailing inspection, so they're signed off for essentially their finish improvements inside, from textile, countertops, counters, cabinetry, all of those types of things as they work towards final inspection. And here's some elevations of the structure once their work is completed. So again, another exciting renovation project happening to one of the older commercial buildings within the town. Another mini storage facility, 606 units, again around 90,000 square feet of space. This is down in the west end of town off of Yucca Trail. Moving relatively slow, but the applicant is keeping the project moving. Again, a little bit different color than what you've seen, but a pretty standard storage facility. Walmart Fueling Station has applied to go inside the existing Super Walmart Center site. Their customer base is not designed to pull customers off of Highway 62, but to serve those visitors to the Walmart Center and those small businesses that are also included in the Walmart and Home Depot area. Kind of an elevation of their little convenience store. This does require a specific plan amendment and an amendment to the environmental impact report for the project, so there will be at least one Planning Commission public hearing as well as one Town Council public hearing. This will take a little bit of time to move through that process. Time Warner Communications building, small project over on La Contenta on the east side of town. They have gone through the plan check process as well as the engineering process for the street improvements. Relatively small project. Tumbleweed Sanctuary, the old church on Pueblo Trail, they are slowly moving through the review process. I believe they've changed their project description and project scope 5 different times since they've submitted to us in the last year. So a lot of the slowness in the review of this application has been on part of the applicant, trying to decide how they're going to address the issues. Things that they want to do on the site can create some difficulties for them, especially in the area of ADA improvements. So where they want to hold outdoor events, public events for these activities, ADA improvements are required, so there's costs related to that. So they're going through their business decision tree and their financial analysis of what works on this site for them in terms of their special events. Joshua Springs Gymnasium, this is another project that was affected by the Western Joshua Tree. They have had to choose a secondary location for the gymnasium because the first location was in 50 feet of a Western Joshua Tree. It was identified in their biological report as a significant impact. So we've heard from the representatives that they've found a new location and they should be submitting revised plans to us in the very near future. So again, another project that's been affected by the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act. Here's just some elevations of the gym project. We are doing what we can to help them. They have purchased this structure. I believe it's sitting on the site somewhere, and so ultimately it will be built. It's a matter of the timing and where on the site. Cell tower over on the church property on Mountain View, another project affected by the Western Joshua Tree. This is what their monopine would look like once it's developed. So they're going through the environmental process as well as consultation with State Fish and Wildlife. Tiny Pony Outdoor Patio, small project approved by the Planning Commission. They're getting close to finishing up and wrapping up that project as part of their business operation. They're doing very, very, very well at that location, as you can tell by the number of cars that are parked there every day. The former Cole Michael Salon was approved for renovation, very nice looking project. It's our understanding that the site is up for sale. For whatever reason, we've had inquiries from a number of people looking at buying the property, so we're hopeful that it will continue to move forward and be developed as approved by the Planning Commission. Las Palmas Outdoor Patio, they were working on an outdoor seating area on the south side of their building between the building and Highway 62. Their design engineer has not resubmitted for quite some time, but we're still hopeful to see that come before the staff to be reviewed and approved. Fourplex on Palo Alto under construction, again adding to the multifamily housing stock within the town. There was a 5-plex that was approved and built, and now this 4-plex. So it's exciting to see a few more housing alternatives being brought forward within the community. Small renovation project on Wamego Trail, turning an old single-family home into a retail, bakery, craft outlet type store. This project is continuing to move forward through the permitting and construction phases. Yucca Valley Materials Lab is renovation of an old feed store up off of 247. They want to put a small addition onto it to essentially begin to function as an artist studio, artist training location. This is the site that had right-of-way legal access issues. It's our understanding that they are resolving those, and we should be seeing a parcel map being submitted by this property owner here, which has the site landlocked. So we have been told that they've resolved the issue between the two property owners, and we should see a parcel map which resolves that legal access issue in the near future. This is what their project would look like. This is a small parcel map, 5 acres into 2.5 acre parcels. The person wanted to subdivide so they could sell and see development of half of the property. There's already their home on one half of the property. Joshua tree, of course, impacted this project. Significant number of trees on the site. We do not anticipate this project moving forward because of the Joshua tree issues. The costs related to the potential development of the site do not balance out with the benefits that would come out of any development of a new single-family home on that property. So we do not expect to see this project move forward. We have a couple projects. You've heard us talk about the Circle K fueling station at Avalon. They have an appointment tomorrow to make their application for the development project, and we'll see what it looks like when they walk in the door. Our understanding has been scaled back significantly from their original concept, but we'll have a little bit better handle on that tomorrow once they submit that application. And then finally, the former Bank of America building proposed to become the Lighthouse Christian Center, which would operate as a church on Sundays and a coffee house during the week, and they're keeping the old bank drive-through as a drive-through window for the sale of coffee. So you've got Starbucks West, you've got Dutch Brothers, and you have Lighthouse Christian Center and their coffee shop coming through. So a few more options for coffee drinkers in the near future. That concludes the staff presentation. We'd be happy to answer questions following public comment.
Hey, Shane, if I could just have you remind the council of our development review committee meetings that we have at no charge to the business interest, that'd be great.
So we make available every Thursday, beginning at 1:30 in the afternoon, staff from planning, engineering, and building and safety to sit down with anyone who has a concept, anywhere from a napkin drawing on a concept to a full-fledged plan, to sit down with us. We walk through what the general plan says, what the development code says. We identify the permitting pathways for them if they exist or if they do not exist. the steps they can take to try and make them come into existence. That could include a general plan amendment or a rezone, which are very standard processes in cities in California. We make these services available for free. We follow up with written correspondence to the individuals with detailed communication as well as application materials of how they can make their projects successful. We offer those services at no charge to the development community. Again, we'd be happy to answer questions following public comment.
All right, thank you, Shane. So is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on any of that presentation? Okay, no one? Back to the council. Anyone want to ask a question or make a comment?
Just want to make a comment. It's good to see development going on, and looks like a lot of worthy projects. It saddens me to hear how the Joshua Tree impacts so many of these things, and I hope we find a resolution to that. Please be active and communicate with your state legislators to see what can be done to make this a more equitable arrangement with the western Joshua Tree. But it's good to see development happening in Yucca Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go with Councilmember Schooler.
Shane, I just have one question on the Lighthouse Christian Center. Currently, there's a functioning Bank of America drive-through. Do we have any indication if Bank of America is going to retain a presence in the community?
Our understanding from local brokers is that prior to the Bank of America selling the property, they created restrictions on the property that necessitate that Bank of America drive-through staying in place on the site. So it's our understanding that Bank of America drive-through will continue to operate even after the church is operating and their drive-through coffee window is operating. The Bank of America drive-through cash machine will still be functional.
Coffee or money?
Coffee or money, yeah, there you go.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Councilmember Dennison? No.
That's convenient. Yeah, you can get a cash withdrawal and then put it in the donation plate. That's good. We had some comments before about the hotel renovation and the impact it was having with things on the outside. And then I also noticed today that the Sparks by Hilton was changing color or adding color design, which I thought was turned down originally from the Planning Commission. Can you update me on that, unless you already mentioned that while I was gone?
So the council had received public testimony about, I'll just refer to it as construction material, excessive construction material at the hotel site as part of their renovation. Staff stopped by, made contact with project superintendents, and that issue was satisfactorily addressed by the contractor on the job site. The color scheme for the hotel was originally continued by the Planning Commission. It was then brought back to the Planning Commission, and what you see occurring out there today has been approved by the Yucca Valley Planning Commission.
All right. You also mentioned about fast-tracking CEQA by the town doing something. Will that fast-tracking element help with like multifamily developments and other projects that come under CEQA sometimes?
So the first step on CEQA that we're addressing is specifically related to the western Joshua Tree and helping people get through the state process of incidental take permits. It will not have an effect on our overall CEQA process, which is dictated by state law. So it is very, very focused on the western Joshua Tree issue.
Okay.
And will that speed up the process for people? The intent of that is to actually eliminate the CEQA process with the state for the western Joshua Tree.
Okay.
So speed up is actually very good, correct term.
Great. Is there a way the town can, I don't know, through master planning or whatever, address the CEQA issues ahead of time so that multifamily developments, duplexes, things like that, will already have a CEQA review and we can move forward with those projects?
So there are planning tools available to approve land uses, including the CEQA document for those land uses. Those tools are available. So for example, the Old Town Specific Plan has a program environmental impact report, where if your project is consistent with the Old Town Plan and the EIR, there's no further environmental review. So you can do that in many other areas. But your area has to be clearly defined, and the uses have to be clearly defined, and you have to have a very precise plan for that area. So is it doable? Yes. Is it an easy process? It's expensive and it's time-consuming, but it's something that can be done.
But it's expensive as well, because we're
It
going to
is.
go through the process.
Yes,
And
it is.
if nothing gets developed,
That's correct.
then it's money wasted. But yeah, it just seems like there's always that hurdle for people to get affordable housing or develop a condominium complex or an apartment building, and then all of a sudden the CEQA thing just becomes another hurdle.
And not to go too far down this pathway, but you know it's problematic when the governor waives the CEQA process and the Coastal Commission process in the rehabilitation of fire, because they know it's a problem. In fact, the former California governor said, CEQA is such a mess, it's almost too big to fix. So it's very problematic, without a doubt.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Shane. So next, well, yeah, that's receive and file. So next, we have future agenda items. So does anyone on the council have anything? No? Okay, so we'll move on. Now we have public comments. The town council takes this time to consider your comments on items of concern which are not on the agenda. When you're called to speak, please state your name and community of residence. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Inappropriate behavior which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting will result in forfeiture of your public comment privileges. The town council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not on the printed agenda. So is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on anything? I don't think anybody online. 2 people in here? Nobody? Okay. Thank you. So now we have staff reports and comments.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll try and keep these relatively brief. I know, Jordan, I'm going to have you to quickly talk about the Measure Y process that we're using this year. I know that's of interest to the council.
Yep. So I just wanted to mention that the Measure Y Partnership Program application period is currently open. So we're regularly reviewing applications and questions from local nonprofits. We have an online workshop that we've scheduled again for interested applicants to attend via Zoom. It will be next Thursday, March 13th at 1 p.m. So we've sent that link out. We'll also request it to be posted on the town's social media pages, so there's more access to that. The applications are due April 4th at 5 p.m., and then we hope to review those and present to council recommendations for funding by the first meeting in May. That concludes all of my staff comments for tonight.
Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate that. Captain, Deborah, Alex, Sue, anything? All right, Shane, Tom, you good? Just 2 comments. Number 1, thank you for hearing the discussion items tonight. We appreciate that. Your team, management team, is pretty well data-driven for most items that we review, that we look at. We want to make sure that the council and the public have facts and figures. It can be difficult with emotional items, and therein lies the tension of how fast are you able to respond to community issues. And so thank you for the support and patience as we work through the process that you heard this evening. On a fun note, next Tuesday, the 11th at 10 a.m., we're doing a field trip for the Yucca Valley Aquatics and Rec Center. So you'll meet us there at the Brem site. We'll walk you around. If you haven't been beyond the fence line, I think you'll be very surprised. You can actually see the vision, and it's pretty exciting. So we hope you're able to make it. If you're not able to make it on that day, then we'll try and schedule something else individually. But again, that's the 11th, next Tuesday, the 11th at 10 a.m. That's it, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, do we get to ride on a yellow bus? Oh, no.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mayor and council member reports and comments. So Councilmember Dennison first.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I do believe that communication is the greatest hurdle that we will have to try and navigate some of the concerns of everyone today. Without that, if we don't talk to each other, we don't listen to each other, even through the difficult times, we're not going to accomplish anything except probably more disruption, just moved somewhere else. So I hope that we can continue with that and have good decorum. I would think that as we discuss things and we take the time to listen to everyone's comments individually, that they, whether it's good or bad, so they can make a good comment or decision on the backside, that they would want to listen to what their leaders, their elected leaders, their representatives are going to say. And I think when the majority of the room left, so did the possibility for communication and discussion. So for that, once again, as of like last time I was here, I am a bit frustrated in that kind of activity. So we're hoping that it will get a little bit better as time goes on. Some partnerships and relationships take a while to warm up, but I am completely committed to this item. I have a lot of reason to be committed, and I will continue to hopefully listen to everybody and get contacted by as many people that are interested in further discussions. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you. Oh, and one more thing, I did forget something. I want to thank very much the Miss Yucca Valley and her court coming here to our meeting today to start it off on a positive note of the youth of our community. And when I see something like that, I go, you know, the future looks pretty bright. So I'm very happy.
Thank you. Councilmember Lombardo.
I also want to say that I enjoyed the court appearance there, and I do concur with you on that. The future looks bright with bright young people like our new court, and it's difficult to hear the things, but we need to, that in areas where the community feels that we're not providing the right service. And I want to just emphasize that I do support our staff, and I think that Doug is very qualified and capable. We need information to make better decisions, and I'm hoping that the entire community will allow us to get the right information and make it, and will support us in the decisions that we need to make. I think our staff is excellent, and we demand a lot from them, and we get a lot of service for the amount of money that we have to spend. I think they're very efficient, but we can always improve, and hopefully we'll find a way to make this a better situation. I do think that, animal safety and that sort of thing is important, and I can understand people being very attached to their animals and treating them like family. I can see the emotion runs high, but let's base it on facts and do what's sensible and can be done. So appreciate them coming and speaking. I want to say that Yucca Valley's always done well with the financials, and we've received many, accolades for the work that is being done. We do have a great staff in so many areas, and thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you. Councilmember Schooler, do you have anything?
No additional comments tonight.
Okay, and Mayor Pro Tem Abel.
Okay, thank you. Since our last council meeting, I attended 8 different meetings. I'm not going to go into those tonight. It's been a long night. I wanted to mention how great the Old Town parking lot project is coming along. The lights going up really excite me. It fits into the Old Town vision. It's going to be a wonderful project. So I thank the staff for all the work they did in design and getting something that's really going to be a benefit. I can already see events happening there. It's got a lot of charm already, and it fits in so well. It blends with what we have down there, so I appreciate that. I wanted to let the council know that I was appointed to to participate in the Morongo Unified School District Community Schools Guiding Coalition in hopes of obtaining a almost $5 million grant that would help 3 area schools, including Yucca Valley High School. So I'm glad to be part of that group, and we'll be doing Zoom meetings throughout the year. That $5 million would be spread out over 5 years if they get it fully funded between 3 schools, the 2 high schools, and I believe it was Oasis Elementary. Unfortunately, I had to attend a Celebration of Life service, 3 of them this weekend. I want to recognize two of the people who are local heroes in my mind. Tom Higgins, a longtime volunteer in youth sports. He was a mentor to many, many coaches and to young people. He's a devoted father and a husband. He was going to be missed. They had a wonderful celebration of life service for him. And he had been battling some health issues for a while and continued to be very positive and strong all the way to the end. Also, passing away was another local hero, and that's Kathy Goddard. Kathy Goddard gave her life to serving other people, especially those that were dealing with terminal illness. She dealt with cancer patients throughout the year. She was a personal friend of mine and also to many people up here. And she turned around helping people through the process of cancer, and then she became a victim of that cancer as well. And she, again, was a testament to strength and being a godly woman all the way to the very end, and she'll be missed as well. So I just wanted to recognize those 2 individuals tonight. We are going to miss them.
Thank you. And I just want to thank everyone that was here for their comments, and it was really nice to see the Miss Yucca Valley Court here. So thank you for that. So that's it for me. I have nothing else to say. The next meeting of the Yucca Valley Town Council will be held on Tuesday, March 28th, 2025 at 5 p.m. right here in the Community Center in the Yucca Room. Meeting adjourned.